sorry, it's cancer.
Each year, about 700,000 people are diagnosed with cancer. It affects your energy level, it affects your ability to sometimes think clearly, it affects your appetite, it affects your sleep, it certainly affects your emotions and the way you think about yourself and see yourself and view the world.
I was in the shower and in the process of washing just discovered a lump in this breast. The doctor did a manual exam and said, "Oh, I think it's a cyst. Let me drain it." Shortly thereafter, I got the call saying abnormal cells, we need to do more diagnostic work. The results from the biopsy came back and he said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Murray, you do have cancer." I had multiple kinds of cancer in other spots in this right breast. And I also had a cancerous tumor in this breast.
I noticed that I was having problems with bowel movements. I decided I should go to a doctor because this was not right. And he diagnosed me right away as having rectal cancer, colon cancer. The tumor was fairly large and it was far down in the colon. It was scary. It was a shock, kind of took my breath away.
It was about a 5-hour surgery. Now, because of the kind of procedure this is, they do it as an awake procedure. I remember I had speech after the procedure, but then at some point that night, I lost my speech. It took me, I would say, probably 2.5 weeks after surgery to get any speech back, and then it took me probably another few days to start to form.
A bilateral mastectomy was really the safest thing for me to do. I was in the hospital for about 5 days, 4 or 5 days. I have incisions here as well as over here. I have incisions under my arms, so those were all hurting. The reconstructive surgery that I chose involved an incision from pelvic bone to pelvic bone, even bigger than a C-section. I was in incredible pain.
She was in recovery, what seemed like a longer time than we thought would happen. But to see her having survived that surgery was a wonderful blessing to me, and I felt like, given that, we could deal with whatever lay ahead.
4 cycles of chemotherapy, three weeks apart. The first one, I was really scared. I mean, just the thought of, I'd heard all these stories about chemotherapy, and just the thought of introducing that into my system was really scary. A big surprise for me is how bad I felt and how long it took to feel better. And especially in terms of energy, just not having much. I don't have the recall that I used to. I don't have the ability to retrieve words. My mind doesn't work the same way.
I know a lot of days I can't accomplish a darn thing. Those are the days when the melancholy, though, really seems to hit me the worst. The hopelessness just seems to grab you, and it's really overpowering at times. And I'm not the kind to feel sorry for myself or try to get others to feel sorry for me, but there are days when it's just overpowering, and I have broken down at times and just cried.
Often people find the spiritual aspects very comforting. They become more spiritual in a sense that they're searching now again for meaning in their life.
Before any of this happened, I had lost a lot of people that were very close to me, and I started to question my faith, and this brought it all back.
Even when I say I have a little faith, it's not that I don't believe in God, it's that I don't believe that always that everything's going to be okay, because you just have those moments. We were told we might not be able to have kids because of all the medicine he was on, and I begged God for a sign that everything was going to be okay, and a week later I found out I was pregnant with her.
It was a wake-up call for me that my cancer was really about me killing off me. I very much believe in a mind-body-spirit connection, and that what physically is going on with us is a manifestation of what's emotionally and cognitively going on with us, and spiritually as well. And that if I didn't want to die, that I had to be loving towards me, caring about me, nurturing of me.
Faith resources have been critical for getting through this, and keeping some perspective on it and finding meaning in it too.
Fortunately, we had good health insurance through my husband. There were still bills that weren't covered by insurance. That was just a huge, psychological pressure of how are we going to make ends meet.
Even if someone has insurance, the co-payments can add up very quickly. It can be devastating.
The surgery itself and all of my services in the hospital wound up being covered completely by insurance. Now, what the reality is that the doctor's visits, the follow-up MRIs, those expenses add up.
When I was going through the first round of chemo, some friends of mine organized a benefit for me. You know, it kept me going financially at that point in my life where I really needed it. Now all my savings are gone, don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. So if there's no money, I don't spend it, and that's how I deal with it.
Many people, it struck me, just didn't know what to say. It took them a while to feel comfortable enough to kid around with me and poke fun at me and do all the things that they did before surgery. I just remembered my mom telling me, "Your name is not cancer, your name is Corey." I think the one thing that you can always say that will never be wrong is nothing. You can just listen and allow them to, at their own pace, get back to their normal life.
Whether they have cancer or not, just remember they're still the same person.
Cancer is a pretty lonely thing, even if you do have a large support group, because nobody can really understand what you're going through unless they've experienced it themselves. It's just nice to have people around that you know who are willing to give you a little bit of time. If you're going to go through something like this, you got to have some kind of hope that down the line, if they can keep you alive long enough, they will come up with something to cure me. And that's kind of what I hope for on a day-to-day basis. And I'm still able to go on and contribute. I'm not going to let this thing beat me down any more than it has.
I know that I'm more now rather than less of a person. And that seems kind of paradoxical because I got less hair and I don't have my original breasts, but I feel so much more.
I'm still on several medications and dietary supplements. The MRIs that we have seen since the surgery have been stable. We're going to be fine. And my wife and I are going to grow old together, and we are going to see our children married and see them have kids. We're going to have grandkids. And I know it sounds like I'm saying these things just to convince myself, but I believe it. I really do. The hard part is getting those around me to believe it.